Oh my God, I can't believe this.
Stephanie Jones says this is one of the first thoughts that came to mind when her Pasadena neighbors came knocking on her door last night to ask if she knew who this baby belonged to. The child was found sitting in her car carrier on this residential road near the 900 block of Druid Hill Avenue at around 11:30 Saturday night. This is the area on Druid Hill Avenue where the baby was found, and there is still baby formula on the ground here. Witnesses say there was also a diaper bag left behind. A local pastor, Bishop Raymond Showell, and his wife made the discovery driving by last night.
This is what the world seems to be coming to. They're not really as concerned as they really should be, and we just never know what the condition of people's minds are now.
Anne Arundel County Police held a news conference early Sunday afternoon saying a woman who saw the social media posts going around about the abandoned baby turned herself in, identifying herself as the infant's mother, Lieutenant T.J. Smith.
You can't leave a 2 or 3 month old on the side of the road unattended, period. End of story.
While the investigation continues, police are also thankful this was not worse.
If a car had came up the road, it sure would have ran over it.
Alice Burton is the one who called 911. The neighbors trying to help protect the child until police came.
The neighbor who lives down the street, he kind of blocked her, so because it was dark, so that none of the cars would hit her when they came down the street. And we just all stood right here and watched her.
The baby just crying so hard. It's a shame people do something like that.
People shot, and that's since Friday. A lot of folks are focusing, though, on Amir Brown, the 7-year-old who was shot and killed while watching fireworks. Now, police believe his father was actually a target, but everyone can identify with the idea that a 7-year-old would want to watch fireworks, and then all of a sudden the gunfire hits and it hits him in the chest, and he dies. Another woman was shot during that same shooting, but she survived. So everyone's talking about the gun violence in the area. In fact, police tell us over the last few days, they've been able to confiscate an illegal gun off the streets in Chicago every single hour. They have increased police forces out there, 12-hour shifts, but still the superintendent is very upset about the violence here on the streets.
If we don't hold criminals accountable, if people do not go to jail for illegal guns, if they do not fear the criminal justice system, if they feel repercussions from the gang that they belong to for losing the gun outweighs the criminal justice sanctions that they would be subject to, we're going to stay in the position that we're in.
And just living in the area, people are very upset about the shootings over the weekend. Look, 67 people were shot last year during the 4th of July. So you can see the numbers drop just a little bit. But there was a headline June 1st I want to read you. June 1st, there was a headline, 161 people killed in 151 days. People are asking for changes, and it's a conversation that a lot of folks are having throughout the city.
Developing in Logan Heights, police are looking for a man suspected of stabbing and killing a relative last night. Police consider 22-year-old Joseph Garcia armed and dangerous. They say that he pulled out a knife and stabbed that relative several times in his stomach. The victim was celebrating the 4th of July with family. They all were. Police say the two had gotten into a fight just before the stabbing. Paramedics tried to save the victim, but he died at home. Police found Garcia's car abandoned in the South Bay. In our next half hour, neighbors will describe what they heard moments after the deadly stabbing.
6 police officers charged with the death of unarmed black man Freddie Gray are scheduled to appear in court today. Gray's death in custody caused massive protests, adding to already strained relations between police and local communities. And videos like the following one are not helping with the tension. Please be warned, the footage contains some graphic images.
Hey, Rick! Yeah, Steve! On your face!
Now, in his tweets, one former Baltimore police officer has openly talked about the abuse taking place within police ranks. Michael Wood reveals that young black males are often being targeted only because they are generally arrested more. A police officer in his department could apparently slap a completely innocent female for bumping into him. He also claims that arrests aren't actually based on real crime rates and that the greatest oppression for citizens and even officers themselves is often coming from the commanders. We spoke to Michael Wood about his revelations.
It's a slow evolution. You start off in American policing and you're in this us versus them mentality. It's like a war and you're going against, and you're fighting this war. But then eventually you start to learn and you start to see the people as being not the enemy, but just like any other people. And with my education coming through and then just experiences on the street, eventually it just was a continual progress where suddenly the dots came together and it felt like what we were doing was terrible.
In the past few months, the US has been shaken by a wave of anti-brutality protests over high-profile killings of black Americans by police. Michael Wood again believes that his revelations only confirm what's been a sad practice for years and that the problems should be confronted by officials.
I don't really think I'm revealing anything. That's kind of been the shocker to me, that this is news. Black America and the black communities in these cities have been telling people that this has been happening as long as I can ever remember, and no one just believed them. All I'm doing is saying that the black community is not lying. What they're saying is true. These things happen. I think reform can take place as long as we understand and recognize our problems and what we're doing for real instead of pretending we're doing something else.
What was supposed to be a flag-burning event is set to take place here in Brooklyn at Fort Greene Park. It turns out that there is more of a counter-protest than a flag-burning protest. About 100 people have shown up waving American flags and voicing their support for the American flag, voicing their patriotism, and voicing their opposition against burning the American flag.
It represents our history, good, bad, and ugly. And it represents where we've came from. Now, our nation came a long way. We came from slavery, and then we went through a lot of racial tension. We went through affirmative action. We built a lot, and we've unified a lot. And this isn't the time to tear it back down. This isn't the time to destroy. That flag has unified us and brought us together through all of that. And that's what it represents.
What's your message?
My message is don't burn the flag. You know, this country died for your family to be here. You're American and you're burning the American flag? Not good.
Right now the crowd has moved. They're moving up the hill into the park. It appears as though some people might be taking the flag and will attempt to burn it.
Let's go!
So one American flag was burnt, and then the person who set the flag ablaze went running, and the group just splintered off. Members of the bikers gang that has been here ran after the person who burned the American flag. Police ran that way. Media dispersed everywhere, and now there's just people in pockets throughout the park not knowing what's going to happen next.
Love is love! Love is love! Love is love! Love is love! All right.
Love is love! It's not a surprise that the majority of Australians want marriage equality, but it is a surprise to see 17,000 people in Perth RSVP and say that they want it now.
2 of my children are not in the position that they can choose to get married. They might not want to, but that choice has been taken away from them.
In many countries, 2 girls in wedding dresses wouldn't normally turn heads. But in China, it amounts to an open display of defiance. This was a publicity stunt inspired by last week's US Supreme Court ruling. Such unions are yet to be legalized here. But the couple exchanged vows and put on wedding rings. It was a celebration rather than a ceremony. The setting was the back room of a Beijing restaurant. Such events have happened before, but the two brides say the timing of this ceremony made it significant.
In China, all of the people celebrate the Supreme Court in the U.S. Yeah, they celebrate the gay marriage is legal in the U.S. But in China, what's going on? Nothing.
Li Meiser was expecting trouble today, but in what may have been a deliberate move, there were no police to be seen.
This may be the epicenter in the fight over same-sex marriage.
What do we want? Marriage equality! When do we want it? Now!
Granbury, Texas, a small town roughly 65 miles southwest of Dallas, boasts the first town square in Texas.
Welcome to God's country.
The town may be the last to issue marriage licenses to same-sex couples.
It's one man and one woman. That is how marriage should be.
Jim Cato and Joe Stapleton have been together for 27 years and were prepared to get married on Monday. It was their first opportunity after the Supreme Court declared gay couples have a constitutional right to marry. They want their license to read Hood County, where they live and pay taxes. But so far the county's clerk, Katie Lang, is holding up the process.
We wanted to be the first people in Hood County to get married. We thought we would be married on Monday, but not going to happen.
Lang initially said she would not issue the licenses because of her own religious objection. But then later in the week, she said she would allow other members in her office to do so. But couples like Jim and Joe have been told the proper paperwork has not arrived. But in similar small counties like San Saba, Texas, the logistical issues have been worked out, and gay couples like Jonathan Means and Jason White successfully obtained a license, while Jim and Joe continue to wait.
When do I come in your office? She said, I don't know. And everything was she didn't know.
Lang's reluctance has sparked a bitter battle from both sides in this normally quiet town. Religious freedom supporters on one side of the street, gay rights activists on the other. One side defending Lang's right to object.
We have a message for Katie Lang. You are not alone. Your community is here with you.
The other demanding she abide by the Supreme Court's order or quit.
Get on board with equality or resign today!
And as many Americans come together to celebrate the country's independence, a Texas-sized battle remains over an issue the highest court thought they'd settled.
Syrian forces backed by Hezbollah fighters are launching an offensive on Zabadani, as seen in this latest handout video from the Syrian military. They've been carrying out artillery attacks on the city, which is considered critical because it's located close to the Beirut-Damascus highway and borders Lebanon. Rebels took control of Zabadani nearly 3 years ago and have reportedly planted mines around the city as they brace for a street-by-street fight. Recapturing the city would be a major victory for Syrian soldiers, giving them control of a key supply route from Lebanon into Damascus.
All the bombing and fighting is in the Bastille neighbourhood. Go see the houses and how they are damaged and the corpses that are still inside the houses. There's no one to remove or clean the bodies. We have no food, medicine, water or electricity. Al Bastille has been forgotten, as if it doesn't exist.
It was an airstrike. I don't know if it was a mistake or if it was done on purpose. Only God knows. There were no victims in my family, but our house was destroyed and 9 or 10 of our neighbors were killed. It happened in our quiet neighborhood where there is no conflict. It's a residential neighborhood. So what happens in the neighborhoods where there is war? Only God knows how many mistakes have been made there.
Aujourd'hui, en commune Cibitoke, au niveau de Mutakura.
Today in the Cibitoke community on the 8th Avenue in Mutakura, some people were attacked by armed criminals who shot at the police.
Des criminels armés qui ont tiré sur ces policiers et un policier est mort sur le champ et 2 policiers ont été blessés.
A police officer died on the spot and 2 policemen were injured. The police responded and 5 among the attackers were killed. A vehicle was also damaged and 7 of the attackers were injured, while 4 were apprehended by the police.
These men say their friend called out to them before he died, "Please help me, they're killing me." From a distance, they watched him being stabbed, shot, then set on fire by attackers they don't know. The witnesses are terrified of being recognized, of also being killed if they are seen telling journalists what happened. Their 28-year-old friend was an opposition activist.
Beaucoup de gens ont peur. A lot of people are scared. After my friend was killed, many people left Bujumbura. How can they stay here when people are being killed?
They tried to save whom they could, but too often they failed. This is the aftermath of the latest deadly string of attacks in Nigeria's north, much of it too graphic to show in full. The attack in the central city of Jos on Sunday evening was the culmination of a series of brutal strikes over the weekend. They're still counting the dead and injured, but already it's believed to be the bloodiest attack since the Nigerian army stepped up its campaign in the country's north against Boko Haram militants earlier this year. And the first since Boko Haram pledged allegiance to ISIS, rebranding itself ISIS West Africa.
To the best of my ability, preserve, protect, defend the Constitution.
For the newly elected government of Muhammadu Buhari, this is its first major security setback, and the new administration's response will be closely watched, both home and abroad, as Nigerians ask themselves if the worst is yet to come.
We heard that the Christians opened the opportunity for jihad, and we all came and volunteered to help our Christian brothers in Mosul and other territories seized by the terrorists Daesh. Our children are dying, our Christian families were displaced. How do we ourselves accept that people say the Christians are not fighting? On the contrary, we want to fight everywhere.
Sheikh Rayani and those good Christian people are focusing on Mosul and the other areas taken over by Daesh. For this reason, in our training, we are focusing on clashes and the unorganized war inside cities.
Rescue work continues in Pakistan's Gujranwala district, where a bridge collapse sent this train plunging into a canal, killing at least 12 soldiers. It was carrying hundreds of military personnel and their families to the north of the country, where Pakistan's military is fighting a Taliban insurgency in several tribal areas bordering Afghanistan. Among the casualties, the commander of the unit. The cause of the derailment is under investigation, but sabotage is suspected. One senior military official says planks along the railway line had been tampered with. But the incident also raises concerns about infrastructure safety in Pakistan. The bridge had reportedly been marked as extremely dangerous. It was a desperate search for survivors. The ferry, carrying nearly 200 passengers and crew, had capsized in heavy seas off islands in the central Philippines just minutes after leaving port. Those who made it out were sent to nearby hospitals, but many others stood at the dock waiting for news of their missing loved ones. This woman cries out for her mother, still unaccounted for. Officials say there was only light rain at the time of the accident. A witness reportedly said the boat made a sharp turn just before it capsized. The ferry's captain and some of the crew have been taken into custody. A formal investigation will begin after the search, rescue, and recovery operations are finished.
Strong wildfires are once again raging near Ukraine's Chernobyl nuclear site. Ukraine's emergency services say that firefighters are working around the clock to battle the flames. According to officials, much of the fire has been put out or localized. 6 separate fires are reported to be burning within 30 kilometers of the Chernobyl exclusion zone. And it's been reported that as a result of the fire, levels of radioactive isotope cesium in the area have increased. We asked expert Christopher Busby whether it poses any health risks.
They are now releasing information that they have detected a significantly higher level of, or detectably high level of cesium-137. So at least they're, in a sense, warning people that there is a problem, which is good. I mean, they're not trying to cover it up, it seems to me. It's not simply a question of measuring cesium-137, which is very easy to measure, and that's why they measure it. It's also a question of seeing what else there is there, because the other things that are there, the strontiums and the uraniums and the plutoniums, are much more dangerous. There will be, however, an increase in cancer a long time later on, up to 15 to 20 years later on, because that's how long it takes for these particles, which lodge inside the body and then irradiate tissue close to the particle.
Throughout human history, mankind has been able to domesticate untold millions of animals to serve him. I, as a young boy of 12 years old, could, with a short lariat, lead a 2,000-pound stallion, and he obeyed my every wish. He could, at a moment, have reared up and crushed me or kicked me or killed me, but he obeyed me. Have you ever wondered why it is so that the birds and the beasts of the field, even in the wild, almost never attack humanity? There's a reason for that. When God created humanity, he made a covenant with the animal kingdom. And that covenant was a covenant that they would not launch unrestricted warfare against humanity. Obviously, if you've ever seen Alfred Hitchcock's horrible late-night movie, The Birds, you've had just a glimmer of what it would be like if the birds alone decided to take on humanity. We are outnumbered thousands to one by every type of animal you can imagine, from snakes and insects and mammals and fish, and yet the vast majority of encounters between man and beast are pleasant. But God said after the flood that he restored the covenant with the animals, so that again animals fear mankind. But one of the horrors of the tribulation period, when God has removed every born-again Christian from this earth to heaven for the marriage supper of the Lamb and the judgment seat of Christ, on earth God is going to remove that supernatural hold upon the animal kingdom, And animals, pets, domestic animals, and wild animals and birds are going to attack humanity. It will be unthinkable, but it will happen, and it is real.
For more on what is driving these attacks, George Burgess is joining me now from Gainesville, Florida. He's director of the Program for Shark Research at the University of Florida. George, so I have to ask you, you always see these statistics about how rare shark attacks are. We had a graphic the other day that said only 7 people killed per year, many other animals more likely. But here you have in North Carolina 10 attacks in such a short span of time. Is this unprecedented? Have you ever seen anything like this in your experience?
We see clumped attacks where you have several in a row on occasion. But this is certainly a novel situation for North Carolina, which historically has not had the same number of attacks, say, as Florida.
So what are the conditions that are driving this? Is it water temperature? Is it other fish in the area? Why so many sharks now?
Jim, it's a complex situation. It's kind of a perfect storm right now of a series of things going on. We know some things that might be driving it. There's higher water temperatures, higher salinities. There's lots of bait fishes near shore. Sea turtles are nesting. And, of course, there's lots of people in the water. That said, that doesn't absolutely explain why we've had 7 incidents in 3 weeks in North Carolina. So undoubtedly there are some other factors that are also coming into play. We probably won't discover those for a long time, for months afterwards.
Five-year-old Jalen was killed by a jumping sturgeon on the Suwannee River. That's her on the right in this picture on the family's GoFundMe page. Her mother and 9-year-old brother were also hurt and might need surgery. FWC says it's the first time someone has ever been killed by a sturgeon on the Suwannee River, but now we've learned 2 more people were hurt Friday night by another sturgeon strike, this time on the Santa Fe River north of Gainesville. Both are in the hospital.
Police say a 28-year-old man was killed by a gator in Adams Bayou near Burkett Marina. He's been identified as Tommy Woodward. Witnesses tell us Woodward and a woman had been swimming in the bayou when the gator struck. Rebecca Trejo joins us with the rest of this tragic story.
This alligator is regularly seen swimming along Adams Bayou near Burkett Marina, but it isn't the 11-foot gator that police say is to blame for the death of 28-year-old Tommy Woodward of Orange.
I come out, take a flashlight, trying to see where he's at.
Michelle Wright, a marina employee, heard screams from outside. Both she and police say the gator pulled Woodward underwater twice.
And the next thing I know, I see his body face down in the water.
The alligator grabbed him and pulled him under.
Police say Woodward was in the water with a woman around 2:30 a.m. When she saw the alligator, she got out of the water, but Woodward didn't.
The female that was with him saw the alligator come from underneath the dock here at the marina and said, "Hey, there's an alligator," and he acknowledged it and jumped in anyway.
Police found his body about half a mile down the bayou with traumatic wounds to his upper chest and left arm. It has all come as a shock for the regulars in this area. People often swim these waters with small gators.
I mean, the kids around here probably swim in the bayou every day with 3- and 4-footers. That's not that big a deal.
Parents like Angela Hoffpower say that won't be the case anymore.
There will be no more swimming.
Family's boat ride to celebrate their parents' wedding anniversary takes an unexpected and dangerous turn and 2 broken ankles. Now, this happened when a dolphin suddenly jumps out of the water in Dana Point and onto their boat. Now, you're about to hear from the very surprised couple about what happened right here in this video. NBC4's Vicki Vargas is live for us in Dana Point with more on this incredible story. Vicki.
Chuck, keep in mind this happened on Father's Day. Turns out it was the Frickmans' 18th wedding anniversary, a very busy day here in the harbor. But as Dirk Frickman told us, there's not much you can do when a giant dolphin lands on your boat. The Frickmans say it was a spectacular show on the open sea. A dozen dolphins jumping high in the air like something from SeaWorld.
It looked like they were in groups of 3s.
I thought, who knows, maybe mating or something, jostling for females, I don't know.
Then one dolphin did an aerial flip and landed where no one expected, on the bow of their 21-foot Boston whaler. One more bounce and it was on the deck next to them.
It was almost like it fell out of the sky because it was so high, like it was higher than I was. So it was really dramatic.
For the next half hour, the Laguna Niguel family was in shock and awe, trying to calm one another and their 6-foot, 350-pound passenger.
The dolphin was kind of sliding all around the boat, so we were trying to anticipate which way it was going to go so we could go the opposite way.
12-year-old Tristan wasn't hurt, nor his 16-year-old sister, Courtney, but the dolphin was flailing.
Kind of injured its nose and injured its tail. The blood started kind of spattering all over, and then my daughter looked and was like, oh my God, please don't let it die, don't let it die, don't let it die.
During the chaos, Chrissy Frickman broke one ankle and tore a ligament in another. She was rushed to the hospital. Dirk Frickman had to take the seats out of his boat, wrap a rope around the dolphin's tail, and rely on an army of men to lift it out.
Got it up onto the dock, got it back in the water, and it swam away very quickly.
They think it's crazy. They think it's the craziest thing they've ever heard.
We have so much sea life out there, and they're one of the greatest things to see. If it's too early now, I've asked them, do you want to go on the boat? No. No.
The sight of these bees swarming may cause your skin to crawl. They've lived in this tree on Palmer Avenue, neighbors say, for about a year, and in that time, they've practically taken over.
You can't even sit out, enjoy your life outside in the sun on your own porch without getting scared that you're going to get attacked.
Jennifer Howell says kids and adults alike don't just walk along her road. As they get closer to this tree, they take off running. Her neighbor Joey Jones, wary of specialists who have been unable to rid the area of this pesky problem, attempted to get rid of the bees himself, and he has the war wounds to prove it.
That is a bee sting right there. I worry more about a child running over there to the tree playing and not realizing that they're there, and it would be devastating on a child.
Pest control expert John Cooksey with McCall Services warns these Africanized bees should not be taken lightly. He says for those who live nearby, their best bet is to run inside if attacked.
Africanized bees or killer bees are a major problem in the state of Florida, and the best way to deal with them is just to eradicate them.